today. My name is Jordan McCracken-Foster, and I am a teaching artist here at Art Prof. And I'm here today with fellow teaching artist and my birthday twin, Lauryn Welch. And today we are going to be discussing how to balance a day job with your artwork. So if you're interested in creating artwork and making your weakness your strength, then definitely check out our website where we have lots of free access to tutorials and critiques, and you definitely want to check that out. And so for today, for our first question, I want to ask Lauryn, how do you manage to keep control of your work life and your artistic life behind the scenes?
Oh man, yeah, Jordan, that's a hard one because I am both an artist and a student, an MFA student, and I got a day job on top of that. So it's juggling three things that should just take up my entire 24 hours. Like one of those things could take up my 24 hours. So I basically have this set up by place is how I figured out is most easy for me to organize my time. I mean, this was pre-COVID, so I'm still working out the post-COVID kind of thing, what that looks like. But what I would normally do is I would go to my studio at the school and I would do all of my school art stuff there. Thankfully, school and art, like my studio stuff, is my homework, so that works out great. And then for my job, I would either go home or go to another location and do my hours at my job. And my job is remote, so I can basically do it anywhere, but I really need a set place for that. Otherwise, I carry it wherever I go. I have a really hard time with keeping boundaries with my work. I mean, what about you? Because you've also been through the MFA experience and the work art life experience.
Yeah, so for me, this primarily only really matters for my grad school experience because undergrad I didn't really have a job. And so during grad school, I was a full-time student taking 3 classes. And I don't know if you guys know this, but at art school, a lot of the studio classes are like 8 or 9 hours long. They're not short classes. So I would do that. And then I would work at a retail store for, 10, 15 hours a week. And then on top of that, I would be doing my homework. And so what I would do is I would work the minimum amount I could at my day job to make sure I could survive and live. And then I would just spend every other waking hour just working on my craft and spending a lot of time at school and workshops and doing homework and stuff like that. And that's how I was able to develop and how I kept things going for 3 years. And it was intense for sure.
It's really hard. It's like you need to have all the juggling balls in the air all at once, all the time. And it's really hard to make sure everything is getting their proper attention. Have you ever seen that meme where it's like you can only pick 2 and it's like social life, good grades, and I don't even like good mental health. I don't even remember the third one, but it's like
I think it's sleep.
Sleep, yeah. I mean, that's basically, bodily health, I think, in that one. And I feel like that's so real. And actually, anybody in the chat, if you would like to share your crazy art life, work life schedules, we would love to hear them and share them. Maybe we can work out between us what is a good schedule to have. Like, I don't know, Jordan, do you have, what are your weekends like? Is that spent doing your day job or is that spent really in the studio? Do you have specific hours that work for you?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on if it's pre or post COVID, but right now, currently, I mostly do a lot of work from home. So I have freelance coming in. I live in, little studio apartment. My desk is like 5 feet away from my bed. So I just get up and I start working and doing my thing. And on the weekends, usually I take Saturday off like completely because that's just time for my personal time to just rest and rejuvenate. And then once, like Saturday night or early Sunday morning, I'll get back to work and I'll just keep it going. And like during the school year, I would do about 10 or 15 hours at whatever job I have in the city and just keep it really simple. But because art is my career, my passion, it's not just a hobby for me, I really want to make sure that I spend more time doing art because I'm getting better. And the better I get, the more people will seek me and hire me, hopefully, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's always the hard thing is figuring out how much because art is also your job. I think this is the difficult thing and also something that is I want to know more about with everybody in the chat or who's watching. Like how do you consider art? Is it your do you also consider it a job or do you consider it more as like a hobby or something that keeps you really entertained? Because I know when I do art, I'm definitely, I mean, it's like when I was lifeguarding, I was a competitive swimmer and I was like, oh, lifeguarding, this is going to be fun. This is going to be great. I'm going to be near the water. And that was not really how it turned out. And similarly, being in art fields all the time can be a little bit stressful. And it's like, it is still work. You are still expending a certain amount of mental energy to please like a clientele or a patron or just getting better as at your craft, as you said. Like how do you deal with that art related stress?
It's tough. I actually see a couple comments here about how do I avoid burnout. I guess that's kind of the same kind of question. And honestly, I'm not necessarily proud of this, but there were times where I would literally stay up drawing for 20 plus hours in a single sitting. I don't recommend this. Like, please don't follow my example on that. But deadlines, stressful class, all that stuff. And I would sleep when I finally got home after class. I would sleep sometimes at like 7:30 at night and would wake up to like 9 in the morning. Like, I'm not even joking. And I would just pass out. There are other times where I was able to just survive off of 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And it was basically after a while, it just became like a machine. I just became a machine basically. And looking back, I wish I would have gotten more rest. And that's something I definitely think everyone needs to take into consideration. You need to take care of yourself, definitely. But it was not easy.
Yeah, that's you can definitely do that for a period of time, but it's hard to maintain stability with that.
Right.
And I think related to that, Fausto, hope I'm saying your name right, Mendoza is saying, I'm starting college in a year and a half, so I'll have to find a way to squeeze art into my schedule. Any tips on staying alive and mentally stable with this workload? Do you have any tips to avoid those kinds of habits?
You know, one way to combat bad habits is to develop good habits instead. So, one thing that Lauren and I were talking about before is finding your peak creative hours. And so, some people they are night owls, and they find that between hours of like 10 at night and 2 a.m., they're just bursting with all the creative energy. And then some people are morning people, and they like getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how many of those people exist. I'm sure there aren't as many, but I know they're around. So you could do something like that. I don't know, Lauren. Do you have any tips for that one?
I mean, I think that's a really good one because definitely I am a night owl person. I have never been able to get into the studio before 11 a.m., and that's the absolute earliest. Usually it's after 1 p.m., and I like to work till like 3 in the morning. And I find that if I am a person that wakes up at like 7:30 or 8:30 in the morning, but I just don't have that art brain going. And if I do go in the studio early, I just waste a lot of time. And I can't get that time back. I'm not doing anything else. I still have to do all my chores for the rest of the day. So identifying that is super important. I want to know what your peak work hours are. Do you have them or can you just go all day?
Uh, I think I just go all day.
I'm so jealous.
No, like, well, because for me, I don't have a choice. At least that's kind of what I tell myself in a way, because I know this is what I want to do, and I know that I love it. And also sometimes if I have clients breathing down my neck, that also incentivizes me a little bit. But I definitely tend to stay up late. Not, sometimes I'll be up to 2 or 3, but I could, there have been times where I get up, I eat breakfast, and I just go straight to my desk, no matter what time that is. And so, uh, I feel like it's just become such a habit for me at this point that it doesn't really cross my mind to think, oh, this is abnormal in any sort of way.
Yeah, I feel like that is like the ideal. I would really want to be in that position. But I feel like I'm more like Erica, who says sometimes I have projects for a zine or something, I'll end up drawing to the early hours in the morning, not very healthy. Or it's like you've got that one project and you need to work on it, and you just gotta, when the zone hits, you just have to go with the zone and keep going and hang on to that. I listened to a podcast once, and I think it was called like Getting into the Deep Space or something. I don't know. There's like, I feel like it takes time, like an hour or so, to rev up and get into that space.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that brings up a good point about having blocks of studio time. Like, would you rather go in and do 15 minutes a day, or would you rather have a set time like 5 hours where you're in the studio? Like, what makes you most productive time wise?
I personally like spending several hours doing something, and honestly, what ends up happening is I'll either have YouTube on the side, or a movie, or a song or something like that, and I'll get my little breaks in there, because there are times where I just have to dance and draw at the same time, where I'm just kind of bopping my head like, yeah, I like this song, and I'll just do my thing.
Need a video of that.
No, you will not get a video of that.
That goes on Patreon, guys.
It's not tonight anyway. Maybe one day. Maybe on a Patreon or something.
Patreon reward.
Yeah. But yeah, I personally, because I'm so used to the school environment, and I'm used to spending hours just working on a certain thing, I find myself much more productive if I can spend several hours doing something versus just 15 minutes. But there are times where it's just been 15 minutes and I have to get it in anyway.
Yeah, you had mentioned something, like, I know personally it usually takes me like an hour just to set up my station, just to like mix colors, for instance. But you do want to maintain good studio habits. You don't want to go long periods of time without working creatively, or you lose momentum. So I think having a sketchbook habit is really decent, like to do small chunks of time when you can't dedicate like whole periods of time in the studio. So you had mentioned about keeping a studio nearby. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So either have a studio, or like
sketchbook, sorry.
Yeah. So there are times where I get like a 10 or 15-minute break from my day job, which is not art related, by the way. And I'll just be there on my break, and I'm sitting there drawing, and my coworkers always go like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm an artist," and they ask me all these questions, which is kind of fun to answer. It's nice to have people appreciate your work, and so I just sit there and I just doodle. Or there are times when it's super slow and no one's coming in, I'll grab a little napkin and just hide from the camera a little bit and just draw, and then I'll throw the drawings away later. But yeah, that's about it.
Oh, whoops. Hang on. Is it there? Sorry, I messed up on the comments. So this reminds me too of what you can use that sketchbook time for, because it doesn't have to be related. Like, it doesn't have to be just something unrelated. It can be related to your studio stuff that you do later. Like, you get those 15 minutes like at your on your break, but FDSFD says it takes around 30 minutes for me to sit down and focus. I can't create art until I plan to create art in the future. So that's like kind of a hack. You could spend your time at your job with your sketchbook creating your little thumbnails or color studies or whatever to bring to your studio later to create your full pieces. Like, I know in my practice, I have, like, it really bums me out to have to go and work in my sketchbook and not be able to go straight to my big piece. But I really need that planning time. So you can use that time, get it out of the way, just by working in your sketchbook and planning out all that stuff for later to get you all revved up. Like, do you have any other preparatory stuff that gets you ready to go so you can just enter studio after work?
Yeah, there were several times where I would be on the train to school, and I would have my iPad on me, and if I didn't, maybe I had an idea that hit me while I was on the way to school, or maybe on my way home or something, I would just pull out and just draw on it. And a lot of those times, it ended up turning into something that I was really proud of, and things that I even got into my school's art show. And so inspiration can hit at any point, and that's why I think it's always good to be ready. And the thing about art is, for me, I don't ever really turn that switch off. it's always, art is kind of always on my mind. And so when inspiration
Mhm.
hits, I got to go for it, regardless of what's going on around me. If I'm in a train and it's moving, I just hold on to the sketchbook real tight and just hope I don't fall over. That's just kind of how it is for me. And I think that whatever way you can just insert that time in, just use it however you can.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I feel the same way. And it's something that becomes easier over time if you have that habit of just being able to go in and jot down what you're thinking about. It's, I feel like some people are like, oh, I have to wait for inspiration to hit. No, like you have to be ready for inspiration to hit.
Correct.
And then I love this question here. Moises says, how you guys make time for art prof besides doing your practice and everything else? Because art prof's a labor of love, right? How do we make time for art prof, Jordan?
Well, usually once we get our schedules for what stream we're doing, I just make sure I set that time aside like weeks in advance and make sure I don't have any other meetings around there so I can give my 100% effort to anything art prof related. So whether it's a stream or Patreon or Discord, whatever the case may be. And like Lauren said, it's a labor of love, and I love helping people with art. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like that is really a question for Clara because she does like the bulk of the work.
Yeah.
I especially on the streams. I remember, yeah, you were doing stream. We were both doing streams last year, and we had to do a lot of work for those streams with all that slides and stuff. Like it would take hours to put like a single slide together or a single stream together with all the notes and stuff. And Clara's really gotten that streamlined over time. So it's really a matter of finding efficiency with it and having enough people working on it. Many hands make light work, which is why Clara is like trying to make money to hire more people. So you guys actually make it less time consuming for us, which we really appreciate. Yeah. So what other tips do we have here, Jordan?
Well, one of them is the idea of having your workspace ready to go at all times. And I don't know, I work digitally and with like pencil and paper for the most part, so it's not a huge setup. But I don't know, maybe Lauren, maybe you have something that you've done over the years that has helped you.
Oh man, yeah. It's if I have to get out all my paints, it's just such a drag. This sounds so awful. I really love art. I love painting, but I'm such a lazy person, or I just don't have a lot of willpower, or maybe it's scattered in a bunch of places. I need to have. I usually what is most helpful is I leave something purposefully undone in one of my pieces that I know that I can do and that I can finish in my next studio session. And I leave the canvas facing outwards so I can see that. So I'm like, oh, I really need to do this. I really need to do this. I have all my paints laid out and I have it so it's easy to go over there and just do it. And then by the time I finish that task, it sucks me in to do other things. So that could be gessoing a canvas, or it could be filling in like a green spot on one area, or it's like, oh, today I need to make mix paints of this particular color palette. I almost have like a checklist of these kinds of things. I actually see a comment here that would be good for you because I think you deal with some of this stuff. Erica's asking, how do you guys stay on schedule if you have a project to work on, like client work or commissions? Like you don't have the luxury of spending a lot of time brainstorming and working it out.
Okay, so I'll tell you a little cheat that I do for this. If I have a client and let's say I know I'm not particularly excited about the project, I will intentionally push it back a little later than I think I'll probably need to finish it because I know stuff pops up. There first off, things just life happens sometimes, and if it's something I know is going to take a long time, then I might even just push that back for a little bit. Um, and in terms of luxury, spending a lot of time brainstorming things like that, once you do it enough, it becomes easier over time. And art is definitely, I think it's definitely a blend of the thinking and the physical output, the actual drawing, the actual painting or sculpting or whatever it is. And when you're doing the brain work, sometimes that can come while just like on the train or when you're walking to the grocery store or whatever it is. And if you're constantly thinking about the project or just how to improve or just looking at the world in a different lens from that artistic eye, I think that will definitely help.
Yeah, I need to take some of these suggestions from you because I'm just like notoriously late with those kinds of things. I'm always like, yeah, I can do it in this amount of time. And then it's always like twice as long as it needs to be. Like setting those kinds of schedules for yourself is really difficult because it's kind of like doing construction or something or building a museum where you always run into issues like something whatever can go wrong always will, and it will always be the most expensive it can possibly be. Like these are I feel like that sense of built-in padding is really really important and good that you bring that up.
Yeah.
Also, next art Prof Live. Prof Jordan bopping his head to Madonna 24 hours straight while working.
All right. So my response to that, I actually really like stuff from like the 70s. So like any Stevie Wonder or like Jackson 5 or, anything like that, I'm so down. I would love to do that.
I think these guys here need to make you a playlist. If you guys can make a playlist for Jordan and post it in the Discord, then we will have Jordan dancing and drawing to it for at least an hour. I don't know if you can go the full 24. I'm making you do this. I'm signing you up,
You're
Jordan.
just ordering me around now.
Okay. Here is another by Caitlin, who says, okay, so I don't plan on going to art school, but I still want to make art out there. I love doing it as a hobby, but I would like to make a Patreon in the future if I get a fan base. What do you think about having a Patreon to make like some extra money? How does that factor into the art and work lifestyle?
Yeah, I know a lot of people who use Patreon to help them out. Our Prof is one of them. And the thing about Patreon that's really great is that the more you're able to make, the more you can cut back on your day job or whatever thing that you have to do that you don't necessarily want to do. And I've heard of stories where there are writers and artists who are like, if you guys give me like $400 more, I can just quit my job. I can survive off your guys' donations. So go for it. I think it's an awesome idea, especially if you think it's better for you creatively to be able to produce more like that and build this community. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's a great if you can regiment yourself and you really have that sense of time and can do something like regularly on a monthly basis. It can be a super helpful thing to kind of pay like a couple of your materials, expenses, bills, what have you, every month. Here's another one by Emmy, who says, the school I want to go to doesn't do a portfolio review until after the first year. Do you think I could be successful with not nearly enough hours put in yet for skill building, but good work ethic?
Okay, so I think if you practice properly and you have a good work ethic, your skills will improve over time. The only time I see someone working like super hard and they're practically sweating while they're working, and that not going well is if they're getting the wrong sort of training, or maybe they're thinking of things incorrectly or making the same types of mistakes. So if you learn how to spot those mistakes more quickly, then your work is you're gonna expedite your growth process. I don't know. What do you think, Lauren?
Yeah, I really think that it's about working efficiently in that case, and you're explaining working efficiently, and that's really that is a good setup for like maybe doing the 15 minutes a day, like 15. It's like art hygiene. Like when you get up, do a 15-minute drawing, like your 2,500 art, like faces and anatomy and feet and all that. Those drawings are only 5 minutes each. So you could do 3 heads in that time and build up like a whole series of that over time. And doing it's like practicing scales, like practicing music or just practicing any skill. Like you will get good really quickly, even if you only spend a little bit of time on it every single day, because that little bit of time really adds up. So I would not focus on doing like these huge amounts of hours, like how we're talking about doing like all-nighters or going to bed at like 3 a.m. or all that. Like that sounds good, but it's not sustainable, and it's also just not very real for most people. Like that's really like an art school specific thing, and it's horrible. Don't do it. Do the less glamorous thing of just waking up and doing a drawing, waking up and doing a drawing, or doing a drawing before you go to sleep if you're a night person like me.
And going off of that, one of the things that we also wanted to make sure we mentioned to you guys is the idea of doing a little bit every day versus just having art days and non-art days. Because what ends up happening is, like, if you think about like exercise, right? If you take a day off, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's very, very easy and very, very tempting to make that one day turn into 5 and 6 and 7, 8 days and into a month, So the idea, this is something that I don't do. I don't advise binge drawing, which is like, take 3 days off and then spend the entire day just doing drawing, because one, you won't grow as quickly, and two, you're just gonna end up burning yourself out even more, I think. So yeah, I totally recommend the idea of just doing a little bit every day.
Yeah, Jordan, I have a confession to make, and that is when your 2,500 drawings, I was so on that, and then I took a day off, and now it is like 14 days off, and I feel so bad. I don't want to say it to anyone, but
oh yeah, it's live on the stream too.
I know it hurts. I'm not a real artist. No, but that's so real. I mean, I'm doing other work right now. I had some like commission type stuff that came up, but it is really important to, even if you don't feel like it's a lot like exercising, to find a way to either trick yourself into doing it, like get yourself a buddy. You said you worked with a group, right? Didn't you have like an art group you worked with?
Yeah, there was a group in my school called Drawaholics Anonymous, which is super awesome. Everyone does the 2,500 challenge that we just talked about, and we all do figure drawing workshops, and it's a big art. It's like art pop. It's like a big art family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so that kind of helps your willpower, because you're like, oh, I've got this group that I can go to and do this thing. And that's really hard, I know, for a lot of you, because you're like us, where you're living in a place where you're not getting like direct, and especially during COVID times, you're not getting direct contact with artists all the time. But even just an online community like our Discord, for instance, can be really helpful in keeping you going, keeping you motivated, to make you want to do those things, to give a little bit like every day, even when you're like tired from work or whatever. But that does bring up another point, I think, and about willpower. I wanted to talk about like, what hobbies do you have outside of art? Like, what do you do that is not art related that can give you some rest?
To be honest with you, I don't have very many. Art is my life. I bleed art now.
You bleed pants.
Well, obviously I do like, visiting my friends. With the current climate of the world right now, it makes it much more difficult. But we often do like video chats, and we'll just catch up with each other. And I think anything that puts me in a social environment is just something that's good for me to take a break from art, because what ends up happening is I subconsciously take in everything, and that will later inspire my work. Because there have been times where I walk down the street, like just the other day, and I saw someone with this striking orange hair, and it was just, I could see it from across the street on a cloudy day, and it was just bizarre. I was like, man, that thing is like it's like blinding me. How is this even possible? And I was like, I gotta make a character like that now. I have to. So you never know. But anything that just that helps you take a break, I think it's so individual for everybody. But I would say go for it. But
yeah. That's, I was like, did you see a carrot? And that is a really hard one. Like, personally, also, I don't know if I've got like a lot of hobbies. I've got like people at work that, at my old job, that were like, do you ever do anything that's not an art thing? Like, that's really unhealthy. And I do agree, it's like super unhealthy. Like, I got super burned out And I remember just going to, my boss was like, you need to go to a baseball game, just do something. You don't even have to like it, just go do something else. So I like took my partner, we went to a baseball game and ate hot dogs. That was the best thing I ever experienced because I didn't paint, I didn't do any art things. I just experienced the baseball game. And I felt so much better afterwards. And I ended up drawing pictures of people like at Fenway Park because I was in Boston. But it like added to my life experience in a way that wasn't art and was actually super helpful, like you said. Like, so I think that stuff's important. There's another comment here. Any past bad experiences having to explain to your day job that you also are an artist? You said you worked retail. Does this clash come up?
Uh, Actually, not so much because I had sympathy because I was also a student, and there were times, and I told them straight up when I was working there, I was like, "Look, guys, I have this job so I can survive, but my real thing is art, so I need to make sure I put that in priority." And there were times where I missed, or I didn't finish my work or something like that, or I just needed an extra 30 minutes. And there were times where if it was slow in the store, they would let me go in the back and just draw and work on my stuff. So they were very kind about that.
That's
Some places are
awesome.
not that friendly, though. And in that situation, I think the best solution is trying to find a job where you get that kind of time, where you get those few minutes where you can actually have access to a sketchbook, or even just finding a job that still leaves you energized for when you get to the studio later on.
Yeah, yeah, that's really nice that they were so understanding. I remember being a lifeguard and I'd be like drawing people and they'd be like, you have to be watching people in the water, they might drown. I'm like, I'm watching you. I'm watching you so hard because I'm drawing like your hairy arms and everything, and you're like as you're in the water, like I'm believe me, I will throw down my sketchbook and then I will save you. I promise. But I'm never not watching you. I'm hyper watching you right now.
Right, sure.
Uh,
That's dangerous, Lauren.
so bad. Cruise Effects Art Studio is saying, I work 14-hour days. Tough, but I make time. That's incredible. That's like, wow. I don't even know how you do that.
You know what I love about this comment is the attitude behind it is I don't make excuses. And I think that's something a lot of people end up doing in the long run. They'll say, "Well, I can't do this because," and that because ends up turning into a ridiculous reason why you can't do it. And I understand, sometimes we got families, kids, spouse, someone's sick, whatever the case may be. But there are a lot of people who are still so motivated to do art or music, whatever it is that they do, that they still find those 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. And that I really appreciate you saying that comment.
Yeah, yeah, that really actually makes me like gives me inspiration to stop whining when I'm at home. Like today I was like, "Oh, it's too hot. I'm not going to go into the living room paint cuz everything is sweaty and bad." But I can always do other things, right? This is actually a thing that I think about a lot with like people that may not be able to go in and do regular studio stuff every day, whether that is like a mom with children or parent with children, I mean, or someone that might have a disability or chronic fatigue kind of thing, where a lot of days they might not be in a position to make work. And so I think that I want to hold space for something like that, where I do recognize that it's not easy for everyone to get into the studio to do things. Some people really can't do that, like going in after a 14-hour day and doing stuff. But I do still really appreciate that sentiment of being like, okay, well, I can do like the littlest thing, even the littlest thing, the tiniest thing to prepare me for a later time when I can dedicate more of my time to this. Like that is a good place to be. And I want to like encourage people to like think about that, because I realize how hard everything is out there in the world, especially like right now, like trying to include studio space into that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the thread of the ongoing thread of what we've been saying throughout the conversation is just finding time, just that time management, and try not to burn out so much.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, if you guys are able to figure that out, what works best for you, then I think that that is ultimately what's going to carry you forward. And so I see that we still have questions coming in. And so I want to let you guys all know that we do have some of our podcasts on Spotify and on iTunes where you can listen to us get more art talks and have further discussion on these sorts of things. We also, in about 5 to 10 minutes after the stream, we will both be on Discord in the post live streams channel where you can ask us questions that we didn't get to in the stream or just share your opinions on how you split your day job and your art career.
yeah.
And we also want to make sure you guys subscribe and like this video and join the Art Prof family. And last but not least, thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, every single one of you guys who's been supporting us through the years. We really, really appreciate it. And if you didn't know it already, we cannot do Art Prof without you guys. So your support means the world to us. And even though Claire is not on the stream, I know the world to her as well. So thank you guys for joining the stream with me and my birthday twin. And we will see you later. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you. Good night.